Where is another place that we relax our pelvic floor to do number 1 and number 2? It's the toilet. Hello, all of you beautiful birthing people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Elizabeth, also known as Nurse Zabe, here on YouTube and also over on Instagram. And I am a labor and delivery nurse, certified childbirth educator, and mother to 3, including a very cute, very sweet, very nosy little baby girl named Rosalie, who is almost 4 months old. How is that even possible? I do not know. But today I wanted to come and bring a really exciting video to you guys. These are my top 10 hacks for your laboring process. So these hacks are things that I educate my patients on, I help provide my patients in the hospital, but these can kind of go across all mediums of giving birth, right? These would be great if you want an epidural. These tips are great if you want an unmedicated delivery. These tips are great if you're delivering at home, if you're delivering in the hospital. Some of these tips even are going to work fabulously with a cesarean birth. So any mode of delivery, induction, spontaneous, anything, these tips can be helpful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So my first tip, and one that actually is going to kind of coincide with some posts that I'm going to be doing on Instagram every Monday, is the importance of movement in labor. So movement is magical. And why is this? It's because movement that you're doing externally moves things internally, both for your bony structures of your pelvis that are being more mobilized because of your increase of the hormone relaxin. Your pelvis, your bony structures are able to move a little bit more at the joints. We also know that baby has to do a whole bunch of movements to rotate and descend and flex their little chins to get into the pelvis in a really good spot. Now, the really cool thing about movement in labor is that you'll notice it's almost instinctual. If you are not fighting your contractions, if you're kind of allowing them to happen, not only do these movements help move baby, help dilate your cervix, they also help create a rhythm and a ritual to your labor to help you cope through the contractions. Movement is magical. Movement is key. Ideally, we want to see movement and position changes in the hospital every 20 minutes to 45 minutes with an epidural, every 30 minutes or so when you are unepiduralized. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be flipping all the way over. What you can do are more gradual shifts. And if you are really moving with the contractions, that's your movement and your position changes right there. Because this is tip number 2. Dilation, how open your cervix is, isn't that important? It's important, don't get me wrong. Your cervix has to fully open, and really what happens is that your cervix goes back behind the baby's head. It fully goes away. You're 10 centimeters dilated. Has to happen for you to push out a baby. But me, as your labor nurse, what I care more about, especially if we're having a stall in labor, a labor that's going a little bit slower, a labor that we're inducing, is where is your baby in your pelvis? Your baby has to go through 3 different parts of your pelvis. It has to go through the inlet, or get in your pelvis. It has to go through the mid-pelvis, the most narrow part of your pelvis, and then it has to go through the outlet. And so, knowing the station where your baby is, so the relation to the mid-pelvis that your baby is, that ischial spine in your mid-pelvis, helps me figure out what positions are going to best facilitate your baby to rotate and descend. When we are getting into the inlet, we want big wide knees, deep squatting positions are really, really useful. In the mid-pelvis, that most narrow area, having knees more straight, and then also working on asymmetrical movements to open up that mid-pelvis are key. And then with the inlet, we want our knees together to open the inlet and open those sits bones. I want you to, right now, you and I are going to do it together, put your hands under your butt and feel the bones that are right there. Those are called your sits bones. And then I want you to move your knees apart and see how those go in. Now put your knees together and feel how those go out. So those sits bones are on your pelvic outlet, and those are what we are changing positions for to help get baby out. The other thing that I, as a labor nurse, am very interested in, what position is your baby in? When it's time for your baby to be born, the most ideal position is for them to be facing, their face facing down towards the ground. This is an occipital anterior position. So they could be facing a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, but we want them facing down towards the ground. Now, we also want their little chins to be flexed in and tucked. Both of those two things give the smallest diameter to have to be pushed through your birth canal and pushed through the pelvis. But babies don't always start off in that position, and they actually do some rotation. They might be facing to one side or the other, or they might even be facing up at some points during your labor. And so what I want to know is both where they are in the pelvis, so that I can open up that part of the pelvis, and also what position their sweet little noggin is in to help me know which way to turn you, how to open things if we're having a stall in dilation, to facilitate baby taking the path of least resistance, because they're always going to take the path of least resistance to rotate and descend. And so those are some things that are really helpful and useful information to me. But how do those affect you, right? Well, again, if you listen to your body and you're instinctually moving, chances are you're moving in a way that is facilitating opening that part of the pelvis. So if your baby is still high, we'll notice a lot of like front and back rocking, trying to get baby rocked into the pelvis. If your baby is more in the mid pelvis, you're going to feel that side to side feels a little bit better. If your baby is coming down, maybe not flexed, maybe asynclitic, you might notice that you are gravitating and doing tippy toe on one side. That's your body trying to help get your baby in a better position. You might also notice or feel a lot of pain in your back. That can be an indication that your baby is in an OP position, or sunny side up, where they're facing towards the ceiling instead of towards your back. And what happens is that your ligaments are being stretched more intensely in your back from baby being in that position, which causes the back pain. If you're having contractions that are on top of each other and not relaxing in between, that can be another sign that baby is malpositioned, and your body is working to adjust that. So understanding and listening to your body, if you don't have an epidural, is going to help facilitate baby changing their station and rotating and getting into a good position. And if you do have an epidural, your nurse can help assess those things by feeling the outside of the belly, feeling where your baby's back is. During a cervical exam, feeling the sutures on the top of the baby's head and what fontanelles they're feeling, the openings on their head, and where those are, and trying to figure out where baby is in relation to your back. So, are they OP? Are they OA? Are they OT, which is facing the side? And then helping you get into positions to help bring baby down. So it is the combination of understanding how important movement is, and also understanding that baby moves too together, that helps facilitate normal physiological birth. One thing to remember when we are talking about station and dilation, all of those things, is that where is your baby coming through? Your baby has to come through your pelvic floor. This is tip number 3. A lot of people obsessed with Kegels, right? Tightening that pelvic floor, releasing, tightening, releasing. You need to have a strong pelvic floor to deliver a baby, right? Yes and no. You need to have a pelvic floor that is able to relax. That relaxation allows baby to come down and out. Now with you and me together again, we're going to do this. I want you to clench your jaw and feel what your pelvic floor does. It tightens. There is a connection here between this jaw and between your pelvic floor. Keeping your jaw relaxed will help tremendously with keeping your pelvic floor relaxed. Keeping your face relaxed helps with keeping your jaw relaxed. Your vocal cords, there's a reason why your vocal cords look very, very similar to your downstairs business. It's all connected. So keeping your vocal cords relaxed, and by doing a nice low open noise, even if you are saying a bad word, right? I'm going to say truck instead of the F word, but the F word is my go-to in labor. Truck, truck, instead of this. Is going to make a difference in keeping your jaw relaxed, your vocal cords relaxed, your pelvic floor relaxed. We need that to relax. A really tight pelvic floor can cause issues. Another thing that you can do are horse lips. You look crazy, it's useful. You look like a horse, you're making kind of a funky noise, but your jaw is relaxed, and that is key. Now, tip number 4, again, it's about that pelvic floor and keeping it relaxed. Where is another place that we relax our pelvic floor to do number 1 and number 2? It's the toilet. The toilet is a dilation station. Now, is the toilet for everybody? No. You might sit on the toilet and be like, hell to the no. And that's okay. But I want you to try it because it's going to help facilitate you relaxing that pelvic floor. It's also important to keep your bladder empty. A nice full bladder is going to sit in front of the baby's head and not allow baby to come down as they need to. It's also going to make things more uncomfortable. So trying to pee every hour, really, really key. And if you're just hanging out on the toilet, that is perfect. A perfect way to keep that pelvic floor nice and relaxed. If you've got a squatty potty or a stool, you can put that in front of your legs. You even can sit backwards on the toilet and put a pillow on there so you are just leaned over, hunched, and super, super comfy. You're gonna have a dilation station anywhere you go, at your house, at a birthing center, and also in the hospital. So I love the toilet for dilation station. And if you don't have an epidural, if we're working on pushing, if baby is not coming imminently, the toilet is also a great place to push. Now, do I love to do deliveries on the toilet? No. Have we done a delivery on the toilet? Yes, it happens. Sometimes you think you have to poop and you don't have to poop. You have to have a baby. So I love the toilet. Now, if you have an epidural, we can still use that birthing bed to help facilitate a toilet-like position. We can do a throne position and even put the birthing bar up so that you can lean forward just as if you were on the toilet to help relax your pelvic floor and to help baby come down. We have lots of options, but the reason why, again, I love laboring on the toilet, and this is going to be tip number 5, it's all about the environment, baby. So we know that the hormones that facilitate us having contractions, the hormones that facilitate our natural pain control to having contractions are facilitated by feelings of privacy and darkness and safety. When you have a lot of people watching you, when you have a lot of noise and commotion in a room, your fight or flight kicks in, and that's going to dial down the labor, dial up the pain, and not facilitate a normal physiological birth. Now, there's going to be moments when there's a lot of people in the room. There's going to be moments of commotion. It might be when you first arrive and we're getting you situated. It might be when there is a dip in the baby's heart rate or something going on. But in general, if you are having a labor that is kind of going along as normal, the bathroom is a great place to labor because we can shut the door, we can turn off the lights, you can have some privacy. We can increase oxytocin, we can increase endorphins, we can even increase melatonin with that light switching down, right? Having nice dim lights in labor is amazing. I love, love, love when people bring little candles, you know, electronic ones. We can't have actual fire in the hospital. When people bring beautiful string fairy lights, because environment matters. So using your bathroom both for a dilation station and for privacy and for lighting is a great idea. Now, again, if you're in the bed, if you're laboring, we can do the same thing. We can turn the lights down. We can have some really nice music playing. In the OR, we can do the same thing of having, we can't turn down the lights, right? We need to see, but having music playing, making sure that the conversation is only pertinent to the case, that people aren't having external conversations, that you've got your support person nearby, because all of these things help facilitate you to not feel stressed and that fight or flight response. So going off of that and going off about how we are reacting to pain, this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is the thing that I talk about with all of my labor patients, with anybody who is coming in to have a baby, because I love it. It is cheap, often free in the hospital, and it works fabulously for a lot of people. And it is the comb hack. Getting a cheap barber comb and using the gate control theory of pain. Basically, what you're going to do is take that comb, put the bristles right by your hand, and squeeze with the contraction. You want to keep everything else relaxed, but just squeezing that comb. And by doing that, those receptors for that pressure and that discomfort in your hand can get to your brain faster than the contraction. It gives you something else to focus on, and it also can help keep you relaxed and help you deal with your pain and get through your contractions. Does it take away contraction pain? No. But can it help you get through a contraction? Yes. Now, it's going to work even if you're having a cesarean birth, right? You're still going to feel pressure and tugging with a cesarean birth. It's not something that's totally without sensation for most people, so that can work great. It can also work great if you're feeling really anxious about getting an epidural or getting a spinal, having something to hold on to and to grip. You can also hold on to or grip your birth partner's hand, but this provides a little bit of feedback for you and keeps full use of their fingers, which might be handy later if you want them to rub your back or something. Speaking of birth partners, this is my next hack for labor. And this is one that I think is so important. Taking a childbirth education class can help tremendously, but even if you don't take a childbirth education class, finding out information on the normal courses of childbirth, whether this is through reading books, watching YouTube videos, knowing what's normal and expected, and finding that out with the person who's going to be supporting you in labor. And that might not be the person who is the father, mother, partner of you and your baby. That's okay. It's okay to realize, hey, my husband gets really squeamish and he's probably not going to do great in the delivery room. I want to have my best friend, my mom, my sister, a doula there. The role of a doula is not only to support you in labor, and I think this is maybe a little known fact, the role of a doula is to help your birth partner to support you in labor too, to help them figure out their role. So preparing with a partner, figuring out your birth preferences with your partner so that they can advocate for you is so exponentially important. Getting on the same page and realizing, yes, things might change, but knowing what is normal with your birth partner, knowing what to expect, knowing what questions to ask, so that both of you are on the same page when you are dealing with labor, when you are dealing with contractions, when you are feeling kind of pukey and uncomfortable, they can be the ones to ask those questions and advocate for you. And having somebody that you trust in the delivery room with you is going to help all of those hormones do their thing that they're supposed to do, because you're going to feel safe and supported. Now, speaking of those crazy willy wonky hormones, what those hormones do is a lot of different things to facilitate labor. What they're going to do to you, especially during transition, when we do have a pickup in our fight or flight hormones, which are necessary and good to get us to that pushing phase, to get us to push out our baby, and then also to help baby adjust to extrauterine life. You're going to notice extreme changes in temperature. You're going to have shaking. You're going to feel hot. You're going to be cold. So preparing for that, understanding that that's normal, can be really, really beneficial. Whenever I walk into a room, I always get a bin, fill it up with cold ice water and rags to have on hand. Because even if we have an epidural, the shakes still happen. You might feel nauseated. Your blood pressure might drop a little bit. Having those cold wash rags is really helpful. Knowing that there are blanket warmers on Moch Unit and you can ask for a warm blanket when the shakes pick up, when you're feeling cold after birth, to help those adrenaline shakes can be really beneficial. As we're getting ready to meet our baby, this is my next tip for you. This is specifically for pushing. But we can also talk a little bit about how we can do something like this with a cesarean birth. Stay tuned. So, with pushing, especially with an epidural, sometimes it can be really hard for your mind and your pelvic floor to connect, right? Where am I pushing? What am I supposed to be doing? Your nurse is going to help guide you in this if you are having trouble. We can turn down the epidural so that you can maybe feel a little bit more pressure. That can be helpful as well. Another thing that can be helpful, both with and without an epidural, is a mirror. A lot of units have a big mirror that we can kind of position around the room so that you can see the top of your baby's head. Right now you might be thinking, Elizabeth, no way in God's green earth that I want to see that. But a lot of people change their mind when they're pushing. I promise you that. And another thing that you can do is feeling the top of your baby's head. So much of pushing, I had a nursing student be like, We just pushed for 3 hours and it was like nothing, 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 and 5 minutes of something. That's kind of what pushing is like, especially with your first baby. There's a lot of trusting that you're moving your baby, especially with an epidural if you can't feel it. Trusting your nurse, trusting the people who are helping to guide you, trusting your body when you're not seeing a whole bunch of change. But if you can see that by using a mirror, if you can feel the top of your baby's head and realize, oh my God, my baby's head is only this far away from being born, it is a game changer for your brain to connect those two areas. It's a game changer for your morale to know how close you are to having your baby. Now in the OR, there are a couple things that we can do to facilitate you seeing your baby be born. A lot of places have a clear drape where they are actually able to drop down the blue drape that's in front of you so that you can witness the birth of your baby. If they don't have that, if you look up into the lights at most places, there is a little bit of a reflection and you can look down and see your baby being born. Now, if you don't want to see those things, totally fine. You don't have to do the clear drape. You don't have to look into the lights. But I love for people to know that that's an option. My last tip. This is a corny one, guys. This is corny, but it's so important. Every birth is going to be so different. Every situation is so different. Even the same person who's having their first, second, third birth, so different. I want you to give yourself permission to surrender to the birthing process and wherever it may lead you. I want you to know that whatever decisions that you made were made with the best information that you had at the time. I want you to know that even if things don't go to plan, it's okay to be disappointed. I want to talk with you about that disappointment. I want to talk with you about anything that didn't go as we thought, because that's how we can reduce trauma. It's okay to kind of embrace those changes too and know that you are doing an amazing job, that you have a support person who is there for you, that you are not alone and your birth is important and it matters. But kind of surrendering to that process, and part of that is, right, not fighting the contractions, keeping everything relaxed. All the things that we've already talked about go into that surrendering to the process and surrendering to the birth, and knowing that there's nothing that you can do to make these contractions go away, but each contraction is going to bring you one step closer to your baby. If you surrender yourself to this beautiful moment that is the birth of your baby, that is this labor process, if you allow those waves, those contractions to wash over you, if you are able to just go with them and not fight them, and if you get to the point where you are fighting them and you are suffering to get the epidural, it is going to be a much more enjoyable experience. Now, these things aren't easy, so practicing relaxation techniques, breathing techniques, all of these things to help you embrace this is going to be important. Preparing for birth is important. And I really hope that these hacks have helped you. And I need to go pick up my toddler from preschool now. But until next time, bye guys.